Right. Well, hey everybody, welcome to Coffee with the Missionary. I'm so excited to be joining you live today. And as the email said, I am in San Diego, not where we normally are. It's 5:30 time instead of usual 8:30 Eastern. But we're so excited today. We're gonna have so much fun. My co-pilot Mel is not with me. She's with me, but she's not here in the video tonight. She's recovering from back surgery, so keep her in your prayers. And we're we're thankful that she's recovering well and everything like that. But tonight we're really excited because I get to talk to some amazing missionaries with over a decade of experience in Mexico, and they are also the new area directors of Mexico. So I want to invite Dave and Kelly Godzwa to Coffee with the Missionary. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
Hey, Noah.
So thank you so much for taking the time. And you guys are certainly busy, and especially in this time of transition, but taking the time to talk a little bit about your experience and about Mexico and lots of different things like that. So before we get started, I do want to encourage you, if you're watching this live, to give a comment to us. Let us know you're there, where you're watching us from, any questions you have for the Godzwas, and we'll be talking about more specific things as the program goes on. So I guess, guys, why don't you start off just by introducing yourselves and your family?
All right, Noah. I'm Dave Godzwa, and I'm here with my wife.
Kelly.
And we have been serving on the field with our 3 children. That group has reduced to 2 since Rebecca has gone to school. She's attending Evangel University. She's going to be entering into her junior year this fall. We also have with us here in Mexico, in Yucatan, Joseph, who has just graduated from high school, and Jonathan, who just finished his sophomore year of high school. So that's our family. We've been serving. Hey, that's a great picture. We've been serving in the Yucatan since 2006, working in the Bible school, training up pastors, and also had the opportunity during this term to be working with church planting and church planters and training and walking alongside them as we were leading up our district evangelism program.
That's so exciting. And can you, in this picture here, just tell us who everybody is here?
All right, go ahead.
I'm on, if you're looking at it, on the far left, and then Joseph is next to me. Our youngest, Jonathan, is in the middle, and then Dave and Rebecca.
That photo, unfortunately, was not Mexico. That's Erie, Pennsylvania, our home. And that is Presque Isle State Park. That's a place that we know very well.
Oh, awesome. Very awesome. And I noticed the youngest is the tallest. Is that what's happening?
That's happening.
Correct.
It seems to go like that quite a bit. That's amazing. We do have a comment right away from, first of all, Darren White sends a Bible and a cross. But anyway, Darren watches quite a bit. Hi, Darren. Good to see you.
Hey, Darren.
And also we have here Hannah Francine Sanchez.
Hey, Hannah.
Hannah.
Hey, sister.
She says, watching from Phoenix, Arizona.
Awesome.
That's amazing. So, Dave and Kelly, you guys are now stepping into a new role as area directors of Mexico. So what is the role of an area director, and how did God lead you there?
Yeah. Well, the role of an area director is multifaceted. I think, first of all, before we can talk about anything else, it's about team player, about coordination. And, one of the things that we receive, communications we've talked about, is about visionary leadership. But it's not just forming a vision, it's communicating vision. We serve on the leadership team with Dave Ellis in Springfield, Missouri, along with the other area directors. And we are distilling that leadership that he's giving us, that vision that he has for the region. But we're also speaking to the national leadership. And we're in doing that, what we're trying to do is to be able to hear the need and understand the way that they're going, so that we can communicate as well the vision that they have for Mexico, and then coordinating our members so that we can work together and make progress toward that vision. That's one aspect of it. So I some people might even call it middle management, perhaps on the lighter side of things. There's administrative role as well. There are approvals. There are projects that need to be administrated. There are other movements that need to be made, decisions that have to be made. But then there's also the aspect of member care. We get a chance to really come alongside missionaries, and whether it's something that they're celebrating or they're in a time of need, we have a chance to walk with them and be with them where they're at, and that's a pretty exciting part of the role as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, as you described, it seems like a lot of connections, a lot of different relationships, and maneuvering. That's awesome. And how did God lead you guys to that role?
Well, we just figured it was.
I just asked you as soon as you took it.
No problem. We just figured as a foregone conclusion that we were going to follow the Kazums from whatever position that they were leaving. To roll back a little bit on that one, they were here in the Yucatan before we got here, and so we joined them in the Yucatan, and then now we've gone on to Mexico City from the Yucatan, served as area directors, and it just seems logical to us to just follow in their footsteps as we've done in the past. No, really though, that our relationship with the Kazums has been a great one. They served as mentors and really were here for us for several years on the field, and just have just a bunch of respect and admiration for them, love for them, and we're so glad that they were leading us during the 6 years that they were leading us. But we also had a chance to serve alongside them on the leadership team, and during that time, we took care of some of the administrative responsibilities. Kelly, you served as the treasurer, so she was working in that role. And when they announced their resignation, it was not something that we were looking for, but as the call came, it was something we felt like this was something we needed to take on, that it was God's timing, and so that's how we found ourselves in this role.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, we had a couple other people who said hi. Dwayne Martin, Dwayne and Julia, and like Querétaro or something like that. Asking. So I guess that begs the question. So you have a twin brother, Dave?
Do you have a twin brother? And we have how many 2 million constituents in the AG, and that seems pretty large. But when we have twin brothers that both serve within the AG family as ministers, you find how small the AG really is. And so, yeah, Dwayne's question about didn't we just have you? I've had a couple of pastors who have come up to Mike there at a missions event or whatever, and been a little bit upset that he didn't recognize them immediately. And in the same way, we've had people, I remember we went to World Mission Summit, someone was giving me gas money saying, Pastor Mike, here's that money that I owe you for gas. Thank you very much. Thanks for being responsible. No.
No questions asked.
Exactly. If it's money, just, no.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm a twin too, but my sister doesn't look anything like me, so we've never had that issue.
Yeah.
But no, that is so funny. We also have Garo Nagis. Am I saying that right? He gives a thumbs up and says hi. And Dwayne Martin says, if a person wanted to work in the Yucatan, how many indigenous languages are spoken in the region?
In the Yucatan, we have the Yucatec Maya, which is the one that is mostly that's predominantly spoken. There is also, if I can't remember, I want to say that we have some people that are from Campeche, Chiapas area, and I want to say is it Chol that they were speaking. There's a church planting group. There's one, Johnny Mai. She's a pastor in Tigre Grande, and they're right on the lowest part of the Yucatan, the southern cone. It's called Extremo Sur, the extreme south, and it's right on the border between Quintana Roo and Campeche. And they have a family there that is attending church with them, and they speak predominantly Chol. Johnny speaks the Maya language, and so when they come together, there's some things that are lost in translation at times, but
Wow.
it's pretty neat. But predominantly, I mean, the major language group here, of course, Spanish, and then the indigenous language would be Yucatec Maya.
Okay. Very interesting. And Garo Nagis says hi, and he is missionary to Brazil.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, thanks for tuning in. We're glad you're joining us. So we've been talking to Dave and Kelly Godzwa here. They are missionaries in Mexico. They've been in the Yucatan for over 10 years, since 2006. Now they're stepping in a new role as area directors. And if you missed that conversation, you can go back and hear a little bit about what that is. But I want to transition into thinking about Mexico as a region, as an area, I guess. And there's a sentiment maybe some people have: isn't Mexico a reached country? Why should we spend our resources on missions to Mexico when we have other places in the world that have never had a missionary? And so what would you guys have to say to that?
Sure. I mean, I can understand there's a sense of, especially as we continue to move forward, we want to be strategic. We want to work in areas where there are urgent needs. And I think that a lot of times we allow statistics to want to move us into certain areas. And yet, when we think about that, we often overlook some of the things that are happening in these areas that we have considered traditionally reached. And when we look at Mexico, there are 50 groups that total nearly 3 million people that would be considered unreached groups. There's 1% evangelical population in those groups, and you can't really begin to gain traction in those types of groups without outside investment, without outside resources. Missionaries being some of those resources to be able to do that. We need to talk about large cities like Mexico City. The Assemblies of God has 40 churches in the city of Mexico, but that's reaching a city of 19 million people. Peter and Delia Bright are there working on Vision 2020, which is a program to plant churches in the area. And they were talking about what would it take to make an impact in that city, to make a difference in Mexico City. And he said it's going to take 2,000 churches. We lost it. Oh, wow.
Okay, sorry about that. It looks like we got kicked off here. We're gonna get we're gonna get the Godzwas back here just a second. Sorry about that. Just hanging in tight. I'm gonna try to get them on here. Let's see here. Let's see. Okay, let's see what we got here. Oh, sorry about that, guys. Okay. Sorry about that. I think my internet went out.
Well, I think what happened was my answer was too long, and you just cut the answer.
Well, what happened was it took all of us out there, so that didn't help anyone. So anyway, back to what you were saying. We were talking about, isn't Mexico reached? And you had just started saying, there's 50 groups in Mexico that would be considered, unreached.
Yeah, 50 groups of in the country of Mexico, less than 1% evangelical population, 3 million people right there. That's larger than some of Central American countries that we're talking about. 19 million people in Mexico City. We have 40 AG churches there. Peter and Delia Bright are working with a project called Visión 2020, which their plan is to plant churches in the state of Mexico and Mexico City. And they were talking as they were beginning to develop the program, how many churches would it take to make an impact in the city? And they felt it was going to take 2,000 churches.
Wow.
Still have 1,960 to go. They've planted some since then, but we still have about 1,900 churches to go since they've started to work there. And that's not even mentioning other areas of overlooked people groups like university students, 4 million, children, over 11 million. And when we think about, our children's groups, we've got a few missionaries, some of the people that are working with that. We've got the Abusos. We've got Carolyn Martin, who's working with kids. The Hazel Riggs are working with kids. We also, with universities, university students, we only have one couple that's working with university students. That's the Hogans. And they're working right now to create a network of campus pastors. So that's something that is a huge need. And so when we talk about, is Mexico reached, we really need to begin to understand what does it mean to be reached, and to see, yes, there's still room for apostolic function, for pioneering, for reaching unreached groups here in Mexico. There's also tremendous opportunity for partnership and to be able to redirect some of the work that's going on from some quality national ministers, so that we can continue to advance and to reach some of those unreached needs.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And I think that's important just to hear. And I love what you said, just, what does it mean to be reached? And sometimes we can get lost in the terminology with that. And we can kind of just look at, like you said, statistics on a page, and kind of, the statistics talk about an underlying reality, but there's some reality that the statistic can't quite speak to.
And at the same time, we're very sensitive to the need to be operating in all of the world. One of the things that we've tried to do as a missionary couple is to support other missionaries, to understand that just because we've gone doesn't give us a buy in China, it doesn't give us a buy in the Middle East, it doesn't give us a buy in Europe. We need to be operating in all the world. And I think what's so wonderful about the AG is that we are operating in the entire world. Dick Nicholson, former regional director, said, "Who are we to question the harvest master?" And so when he sends and when he calls and when he moves, we affirm and we get behind those people. And so, what we want people to understand, first of all, is that Mexico, yes, there is still room. And we also want them to understand they don't have to hide to say, we want to go to Latin America, that that they should be affirmed and they should be encouraged and understand that, yes, there is a need. We need more workers.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. And this wasn't something I had sent you before, but how have you seen, the needs in the Yucatan and Merida and the surrounding areas, as you guys have worked for over the past decade? How has some of that, unreached people, how have you come face to face with that? In what ways?
The Yucatan, the Maya in Yucatan wouldn't be classified as unreached. The percent of Christians that are among them is higher than that 2%. They have scripture in their language. They have resources in their language. But one of the things that you do find is they don't have access to those resources because they don't read or write their own language. Much of it is oral. And so orality is something that's very important among the Maya people, something that is just beginning to come on here in the Yucatan. The other thing that we've seen is that we've got a lot of, how would we say it? There was a pioneering phase here in the 1940s. There was a push, an evangelism phase that probably went through the 1980s. But there's been a consolidation and perhaps maybe a stagnation. I hate to use those words because we're working with a wonderful group of people, wonderful group of pastors that are here. But I think one of the things that continues to be refreshed is that need to reach the unreached around us. I think it's very easy to turn inward and to allow a sense of organization to give us a sense of accomplishment, that we've done something, but there needs to continue to be that voice. And I think as missionaries, we've been able to play a role in that, and to just continue to point out to the unreached, those people groups that haven't been reached. So that's some of the things that we've seen here as missionaries in Yucatan. Oh,
that's awesome. And Kelly, I want to give you a chance too, if you had anything to add or any thoughts on that.
I'll jump in if I need to.
Okay, wonderful. Also want to say hi to Kelly Cogdill watching from Iowa.
Hey, Kelly.
Awesome. And Daniel, hi Daniel Hazelrig watching in Chiapas.
I thought he already heard me talk enough today. We had a conversation earlier in the day.
That's awesome. He wants more. And then Teresa Vasquez, Viva Mexico. We love the Godzwa's. Mexico is a great field. Amen. Thanks, Teresa.
Thanks, Teresa.
Oh, Teresa.
That's amazing. And we just encourage everyone, if you're just tuning in to Coffee with the Missionary, we're glad you joined us with Dave and Kelly Godzwa. And we just encourage you to comment in any questions you might have, any comments you might have on what we're talking about. We've been talking about Mexico. Is it a reached country? Why is it important to still, send mission resources to Mexico and the need there? But I also want to kind of shift a little tonight into more of the aspect of family life and everything that means on the mission field. So I want to look here. First, I guess, Kelly, this is for you. And I know we had a couple more questions about Mexico, but we'll get to those at the end. But so going into life in the mission field, for you, Kelly, as a mother, 3 kids, how has your missions role changed through the years now that you have kids who are college and beyond?
Sure. Well, when we got here, our kids were in kindergarten and early elementary school and preschool. And so we actually got here after the school year had started. So it started out by homeschooling, and it was important for us to get involved in a local church. So a lot of my beginning role had to do with Vacation Bible School, get involved in the kids ministry area, and relating with the other mothers, mainly that were in that local church. That was kind of my introduction. And then it changed through the years. The next term, Dave and I co-taught a youth Sunday school class in that local church. And I think my role a lot of the time was kind of how I would operate in a church in the U.S. You know, you get involved, you take on responsibilities, and you get to know the people within the church body. And I think that was very important, being an outsider and getting involved in the local church here. And then, as Dave mentioned earlier, the kind of following in the footsteps of the Kasums, when there was a different area director, Paul was the treasurer. And so when they became area directors, he asked me to be the treasurer. And so I kind of took on maybe you could call it a behind the scenes role in regard to local ministry, but I take care of the finances and the reporting, stuff like that.
Yes.
Which is a big part of being a missionary. That doesn't get about a ton, but
Kelly,
it needs to happen.
Quarterly reports right here.
You're an angel, Kelly.
Yes. If you have any questions about quarterly reports, those are all deferred over here. This side.
Are you available for hire, Kelly?
She put a guide up. I don't know. It might have to be updated.
I've updated.
She's got a guide up there on how to do quarterly reports. So
where can people access that?
I believe it's on AG Global Workers on the files.
Oh, wow. Amazing. So if you're a missionary watching this, that someone's God, go AG Global Workers Facebook page, right?
Yes. And it's conversational. It's not just a list of what to do. So
Okay.
And it includes coffee. So
there you go. And maybe just for people who are not missionaries or don't know what a quarterly report is, maybe inform them of this wonderful world.
Sure. Well, when we get money on the field, some of it's money for groceries and stuff, and then other part of it is for ministry expenses. And so every 3 months, we as missionaries need to report on how we're using those funds. So everything that comes in needs a place that it's going out. And that needs reported back to Springfield. And they keep track. We keep copies of those records.
Yeah.
Everything on the up and up.
That is a huge job behind the scenes, but as anyone who deals with a budget, or if you're at a local church and you're dealing with any ministry budget or anything like that, all of that is a huge deal, and a lot of people have a very difficult time with it. So that's a skill. It didn't in the New Testament, didn't we say it was a spiritual gift of administration? So there you go. Awesome.
it's a gift of me.
That's amazing. Want to say hi to Rachel Nicole, says supporting you guys from Blue Springs Assembly.
Hey.
Thank you. Hey.
And we have Dale and Patty Code watching here. Hey guys.
We were on the field with Dale and Patty in 1992
On an Ames trip.
on an AIM trip as boyfriend and girlfriend
Wow.
in the Dominican Republic.
Amazing.
Oh yeah, it was our first overseas experience.
Wow. Okay. How long after that was it that you guys got, engaged and married?
We got engaged the following year and married the year after that.
Wow. Okay.
20 years old.
Oh my goodness, really?
On that trip, if I could share, we
Absolutely.
went to an orphanage, And there was a little girl I spent time with, and she, at the end of our time, I didn't speak Spanish. She didn't speak English, but at the end of our time together, she asked me, kind of pulled me down to her level, and she whispered something in my ear. And I went to get somebody to translate and to know what she said, and she didn't want anybody to translate whatever she said to me. And so I knew how important it was when, at some point in the future, became missionaries, how important it was to know the language, to be able to communicate with people and know what they're saying.
Wow. Oh, thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing, Kelly. Yeah, that's amazing. We also have Don Cartledge says hi.
Hey, Don.
Hey, Don. And Carl Hayes is watching. Hi, Carl. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Dwayne Martin has a question. How does life change on the field when you send your kids off to college?
It gets much sadder. No.
The first question out of everybody's mouth is how that one's doing.
That's right.
Have you heard from her? How much she's missed?
True. Rebecca, because she was homeschooled her 2 years just before she went to college. She was involved with teams, and she did translation, and she was on the worship team at our church, our local church. And so she had that opportunity to be very involved. And so missing her and having her gone left quite a hole for us. And Joseph and Jonathan, they're great helpers, but they were in school. Their situation was different. So we definitely have felt Rebecca being gone just a little bit.
And I heard a statistic recently that of the reasons that people missionaries feel their time is done on the field, one of the moments that is most common is when kids go off to college. And, so that is an interesting. It obviously makes a huge impact.
It's what we've heard as far as retention. There are two critical points: first term and third term. You're coming to the end of your third term, and your parents are getting older. Sometimes they're running into health issues. Your kids are leaving the nest, going off to college. So you kind of get into those sandwich years, they call. And so we're facing those quite a bit. But one of the things that we're very glad for is that there at Evangel, Rebecca has received she's been very at home there. She's been very involved, and it's been easier for us to be here, knowing that she's learning, she's growing, she's developing. So that's exciting for us.
And any other words of encouragement for other missionaries who are about to face that in the near future, or who maybe are still going through that?
Keep the communication lines open, and really call on others to help out, to pitch in, family members, friends. I think it's your kids are going to go through this transition and maybe feel alone in it, and you don't want them to feel alone. So any support you can find outside of yourselves, is, I think, going to be a benefit.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for that. And so I want to transition to something less intense, a little more fun here. But Dave, you are a big runner. Now, this is an old picture, right?
That is 2000 and that's 2009, I think. Oh, that's a 5K picture. Yeah, I think it was 2009, if I'm not mistaken. Yep.
Okay. So talk a little bit about, you've run marathons. Talk a little bit about your running journey.
There you go. That's the Bentonville Half Marathon with Joseph. That's a great picture. That was a great time. We got a chance to do that one together. I just come off the Bass Pro Marathon 2014, and he was excited about that, and he wanted to go and run, and he did a hit. It was a great. It's been something really neat for me to be able to share that with him. Running started for me to shed some pregnancy weight. Correctly.
Sympathy weight.
Oh yeah, that was going on. I remember I did my first 10K. It was actually my second 10K in my life, but my first 10K as an adult, just after Rebecca was born. And I got to the finish line, and Kelly was there, and she said she wanted to hug me because I did a good job, and I said, "I can't breathe. Don't touch me." And so from there, it went to losing weight, to managing stress and some of the negative effects health-wise that can come from some of the stress of being, cross-cultural ministers and whatnot. But it's moved on for that to, I guess we can call it a metaphor. Running to me is a place where I feel like I can challenge myself. Running for me is understanding that you're going to reach goals, and sometimes it's going to hurt on the way, but it's okay. And so pushing myself in that way. I think the other thing that running helps is that with consistency and with discipline, you can build yourself physically, you can build relationships, and you can move forward spiritually as well. So those are all things that running has been for me. And the other thing that you may not know is that there's another runner in this room who's right next to me.
Oh, wonderful.
Currently on a streak right now. I don't know, how many days has it been since you've been running?
Almost 2 months.
2 miles a day for almost 2 months. So that's continuing. And we're trying to see what's going to happen we've got a couple of critical days here. Saturday's a critical day for her. We've got our sale on Saturday. And then Monday is going to be a critical day for her to get her miles in as well.
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Sorry. Yeah. So
travel day.
So we're, it's the running thing is contagious as well.
Oh, that's amazing. Now, do you guys do it together? Do you run together?
We do a couple of times a week at least. We're out there together. I do some of the longer runs when we're doing some marathons. I just did a marathon a week ago.
Wow. Okay.
Almost a week ago. And yeah.
How many have you done now then?
8.
8 marathons. Wow. Congratulations. That's an incredible accomplishment.
Yeah. So, but again, during the week, we try to get together as much as we can and run. And yeah, it's been great.
Oh, that's incredible. And it's an inspiration. And I love the metaphor aspect of it too. That's awesome. We have a very special guest saying hi, Dave and Carol Ellis. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hey, Dave and Carol.
Good to see you guys.
And Dave and Carol, we did touch on this a little bit earlier, but maybe if you guys want to, Dave and Kelly, if you guys want to touch this again, but what are the greatest needs in Mexico today?
Again, we did talk about, the unreached groups that we had mentioned. We're looking at the challenge of the cities that we've talked about. We're looking, again, at those overlooked people groups. We're talking about university students. We're talking about children. We're talking about, as well, indigenous. One of the things that we're looking at, places like Chiapas and Oaxaca, the Yucatan, of course, we have indigenous language speakers that are there. We also have rural communities that we need to continue to reach out to. Some of the places that really have suffered the most because of this war on drugs. So tremendous needs here in Mexico.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And kind of piggybacking off, the needs in Mexico. Specifically, what are some inaccurate perceptions that Americans tend to have about Mexicans and about Mexico?
I think it was interesting. We'd watched a TED Talk that talks about the one story, and it was an African speaker, and she was in the United States in exchange program, and she asked her, I want to hear some of your tribal music. And she pulled out her Mariah Carey disc and said, this is what I listen to. And what ends up happening is that we stereotype, and I understand the reason why we do it, because we want to categorize things. It's just part of the way we do it. It's easier for us when we say, okay, I've had this experience, or I've heard about this, and so this must be true. Mm. And I think we do that with most cultures that are foreign to us. And I think even more so, when we go on vacation, a lot of Americans choose Mexico as a destination. Cancun, Playa del Carmen, those kinds of places. And, we think we've had an experience, and that is all of Mexico. And so we know Mexico. So it's dangerous because we're so close, and yet Mexico is so elusive because we're talking about 130 million people. We're talking about hundreds of indigenous languages. We're talking about a culture that spans, it's just as diverse as the United States. And again, then we're talking about food as well. So, what we eat here in the Yucatan, most people wouldn't recognize as Mexican food in the United States. So
things like what? Sorry to cut you off, but
go ahead. Yeah. So, most people wouldn't know what relleno negro was, and they would look at that and they would say, well, that looks kind of like a plate of petroleum, of oil here. It's cooked. These are caramelized chilies, and they're made into a broth, and it has sausage and egg and turkey, pulled turkey. That's a traditional dish that's here. Very spicy. Something other things that we have that's here, cochinita for breakfast.
Regional dishes include pork and turkey. Those are very popular.
Okay.
You wouldn't think of pork and turkey as being Mexican cuisine, but definitely is.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, that's amazing. So yeah, continue.
I think what we need to understand, one of the misconceptions we have is we speak the one story, and we say, and we define who that culture is. I think we can do that with any nation. I think Mexico even more so because we're this close, and I think we've heard some comments about the people that go from Mexico to the United States, some disparaging comments, and I think then we classify the country by some of those disparaging comments, and I think that we sell it very short by doing that. I think just so much to experience, and one of the things that one of the stereotypes that comes across is that the guy with the sombrero who's sitting against the cactus, and he's taking a siesta. And one of the things
people are very hardworking here. Yeah. You have moms and dads, men and women that are both working jobs. They're entrepreneurs. They own businesses. They work long hours, and just to put food on the table. And that's the kind of.
And they're up early in the morning. Earlier than most of us wake up. 5 in the morning, 4 in the morning. Some of them are waking up to just begin to get things ready for work. So, those are the kinds of things that we look at and we say, these are those stereotypes, but the true story is usually remarkably different.
Wow. Well, thank you for that. And I'm sure there's many more. We could go down the list of inaccurate perceptions. Kind of transitioning to, maybe pastors or people that are living in the U.S. and they are encountering Mexicans, or just thinking about there's a lot of Mexicans in my region. I'm in San Diego right now, and Southern California, plenty here. And so, how can U.S. churches better reach out to and disciple Mexicans that are here in the U.S.?
I really think that when we're talking about, reaching and discipling, we first need to start to pray. And one of the things that we've seen is that as we begin to pray, God begins to move or open our eyes to the situation that's around us. And sometimes we start with a plan and we think, okay, this is going to be the plan that I'm going to use, when in fact God is working in a different way in that community that's around us. And so I think to begin with is to open and to say, we really feel that we're being moved, and begin to lean into that desire, and to begin to pray and to ask God not only to give a desire, to begin to form direction. Henry Blackaby years ago wrote the book on knowing God, and he talks about how do we know God's will, and well, actually, how do we do God's will? And it's find out what God's doing and join Him in what He's doing. And I think that as we begin to investigate, as we begin to open our eyes, we begin to see some of those needs. And so, it begins with prayer, and then it begins with forming relationships. I think one of the things that we miss a lot of times when we want to do outreach, say, there's an immigrant community, we begin to think, oh, well, they have a need, and so we'll go and meet the need. Whether we'll package groceries, or we'll go in and maybe school backpacks, or help them with their housing conditions or whatnot. And I think before we do any of that, I think we should begin to lead with the sense of, we don't want to just give you something. We want to be a part of your life, and we want to form a relationship. And I think it's beginning out of those relationships, we begin to understand truly what the needs are. And yes, it may be, I don't want to say don't do those kinds of outreach, but I think it needs to go beyond that. And it only goes beyond that if you formed relationships with those Mexicans in the U.S. And I think the other thing we need to understand as well is that when we're talking about Mexicans, not all of them are this way, but there's a good group that are undocumented, and there's a lot of sensitivity there. There's a lot of concern and fear that's going to be there among the population of Mexicans if they're undocumented in the U.S. So it's going to be difficult. You're going to have to be patient, to be working with Mexicans in the U.S. and to understand that relationship's going to take some time.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's powerful, but as you say that, talk about prioritizing relationships. I love what you said. Like, make your focus that I want to be a part of your life. I want to share a part of your life. I love that. And to me, that speaks so much about what the gospel is, what Jesus means to us. He doesn't just come and say, hey, I've given you salvation, now I'm off to save the world. He's a part of our lives. So that's incredible. Thank you so much for that.
And I think, in the question, that's exactly what you're saying. You're asking, how do we not just reach, but how do we disciple them? How do they become a part of our community? And that has to happen in that relationship. That means there's giving, but there's also taking. And one of the things that we found is Mexicans have such a rich and not just a generosity, but also just so many ways that we can learn from them, and we can begin to take from their culture as they are going to be able to give us wisdom and insight from their upbringing.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's incredible. Thank you. If you're just joining us, or if you've been watching all along, thank you for joining Coffee with the Missionary. We're talking with Dave and Kelly Godzwa. They're moving into a new role now as area directors over Mexico. And we're so excited that they've been able to share wisdom from over 10 years of missions experience and in the Yucatan and Merida, and following in the Kazem's footsteps wherever they go. So I guess we'll just watch the Kazem's and then we'll know where you'll be. But kind of as we kind of come to a close, I want to focus in on kind of a different angle, but your preparation for the mission field, specifically Mexico. But what was your preparation like? And then now as you look back, because I'm sure there's a lot of young missionaries coming up who might watch this, or people who are thinking about taking steps into the mission field. Looking back, what would you have added, or what maybe would you have done differently in your preparation for the mission field?
Preparation for the mission field, I think one of the things that was helpful for us was to have contact with other missionaries prior to going out of the mission field. And maybe even if I want to step back from this, I think that first of all, that there needs to be an understanding of a call. We sometimes maybe romanticize it, but I think if there's anything that has stayed the course and helped me and Kelly as well stay the course, has been the understanding that we're called to do this. This isn't something that we just decided, hey, it would be a good idea for us to go travel. This was something that we had an experience with God, and He showed us that He had called us to be a part of what He was doing in Latin America. And then, to understand as well as we move forward, it put in perspective from the other missionaries is that, you go, and I think as we get sent out, we get this feeling like we're preparing, we're raising funds, and we're being sent by so many churches. We had, I think, 150 services in our first itineration period. And, supporters are believing in you. You go and you're like, oh, we're going to go and we're going to win the world. I mean, we're going to start in Mexico. And then from there, it's just going to go on. And what other missionaries really emphasized was, babe, you need to spend time forming relationships and learning the language. And as you do that, the ministry opportunities will come. And so we were able to really, to dig in Sincel, understanding that this isn't just, a waiting period before. This is active time. This is going to be helping us. And then after language school, moving on and understanding that, our progress is still going to be looking like this before you see that hockey stick that everybody, hopes for. So there's a lot of foundation that's being built, and so that was very helpful for us, that perspective. And I think the other thing that I look back on, and something that we were committed to do was staying long term in a spot. And I know some people aren't able to stay in one spot, but our relationships have only gotten deeper as we've gone on, and our opportunities for ministry have only gotten more meaningful as we've gone on. And so that was another thing that we were able to do as we prepared. Looking back on, so would you something to?
I think it's easy to try to move ahead with ideas that you have, or how you think things should be, or in ministry, making suggestions perhaps. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in observing for a little while, and maybe not expecting to let that your ideas are going to be taken on or that sort of thing. But it's more of almost like an underground thing. You spend the time, and then gradually those ideas can come up or take root as they take roots through relationships.
Yeah.
I think the other thing for me that just thinking about it is that you got to understand. Yes, language is going to be hard. Yes, forming new relationships feel challenging. Life doesn't stop just because you're a missionary. On our first term, I remember we got to Sincel, didn't speak hardly a word of Spanish. I mean, had a few words, but Joseph had an asthma attack. He's a 4-year-old, and Jonathan, our 2-year-old, not only had an accident that required stitches around his eye, but I also had congenital hernia, and we needed 2 operations while we were there.
Wow.
So the idea is to understand that, life is hard. Life is hard wherever you are, and don't not let it discourage you to think that, we're being judged or whatever. But life goes on, and to understand, that we are individuals. We're husbands, wives, sons, and daughters, and we need to have that opportunity, to be on and to be on task and to be moving ahead, but also to be able to rest and to recoup and to be a family as well. So those are things that you need to have, those rhythms that are part of your ministry, of your life.
It seems like, it seems like that's something that only the Holy Spirit can do, is give you such a conviction that this is not a choice, this is a calling from God. And yet at the same time to have that humility of Christ that is, hey, I'm just forming relationships, I'm learning the language, I'm putting in the hard work, and maybe my great idea that I felt the Lord gave me that is from the Lord and I'm winning the world may not happen, but it's his call and it's his thing. And that's only those rhythms, like you talk about, those up and down, that's something only the Holy Spirit can do and form in you. But that's so incredible. Thank you, guys. This has been incredible, and we have some really encouraging comments for you. Don Cartlidge said, "Proud of these folks."
Thanks, Don.
And Dale Code says, "You guys will do a great job as area directors."
Appreciate that coming from you.
So thank you guys, Dave and Kelly, for taking the time just to share from your wisdom, and thank you just for being open and honest as well. And just pray that God will bless you as you enter this new role. And as Mel and I are ready to go to Mexico when the time comes, we're excited to be working alongside you and gleaning from you as well.
We're looking forward to it, and our best wishes and prayers to Melanie as well as she's recuperating.
Thank you so much. All right, God bless you guys, and thank you everyone for tuning in for Coffee Missionary. We'll see you next time.
Bye.